Hello,
Hi.
everyone. Hi. Welcome to NFTs and the Fractionalization of Art. My name is Ginsburg, Moderator, and we have with us Juergen, who's with NFT.Art, and also Lawrence with EcoFi. Um, I'll quickly introduce myself. So I'm actually in Toronto, and I, I foray into the NFT and blockchain space coming from asset management. I was deep in hedge funds, and back in 2017, I was actually part of the team that launched the first multi-crypto fund in an accredited investor type of structure, and also part of the team that launched the first Bitcoin fund in the Toronto Stock Exchange. So that's my story. Now I'm also doing NFTs, and I'm doing it in such a way that I've created a system that is a plugin into a Shopify, essentially, for brands that are looking into converting. So essentially, the idea is more like we're the shovel and NFT is the snow. So I'd love to kind of like just do a quick roundtable. Perhaps Lawrence, since you were here first, let's talk about quickly introduce yourself and what you're working on.
Well, my name is Lawrence Lanoff. I work with EcoFi.io, and basically we are currently, we're fractionalizing the real world. That's basically what our big idea is let's bring the real world to the blockchain. And we started that with our first offering, which is fine art on the blockchain, masterworks like Picasso's Harry, Warhol, stuff like that. And we're making art, like the high-end art, accessible for regular people using NFTs, which is just a phenomenal technology that I'm unbelievably happy to be part of.
I love it. I'll come back with questions later on.
Sure.
Juergen?
Yeah, nice to meet you guys. I think I'm the crypto native person here. So I'm in that industry since I think late 2013, early 2014, where it was just about Bitcoin. For me, it was like back in the days when I see Ethereum, I was kind of like, oh my God, exactly like things like NFTs, or like it was not known as the word NFTs, but literally like the concept of being able to put values on the blockchain. I'm involved and invested in a couple of projects which are in the NFT space. Personally, I own as well NFT.Art, which is kind of at the moment is, if you're long in the space, you have some access. And what I realized is, or what we realized is, more or less, if you're talking to very traditional art collectors, they have a way how they collect art, literally, like, with appraisals, with proper custody, things like this. And imagine, like, let's say, like a large collection from a bank or a large collection from a family office. Those guys are normally not the way which would buy some crypto and then go to OpenSea or some platform like this and buy a certain piece of art. With NFT.Art, we specialized more or less in the blue chips of pure crypto art, or NFT art, if you call it like this way, where we help basically as well collectors which are having them, which, crypto persons, they are not really completely familiar with how the traditional art world works. So we basically bridge them together, and then on the other side as well, the traditional artwork doesn't really know how to get access to punks or how to get access to, let's say, this was something like a digital Damien Hirst at the moment.
So, with respect to how the crypto space and the NFT is, it's like for onboarders that are already crypto native, it's very easy to understand how you transact with this space, right?
Yes.
How do you convince like blue chip art, like, to be sold to somebody that wants to pay for this blue chip art with crypto? Like, and this applies to both of you guys, you know what I mean? Because you've got Gauguin or like Picasso. So for a Christie's, is it just all about like who is the highest bidder? Or typically, isn't there a bit of a syndicate where only 30 people who are like registered in their in that specific auction can make a bid? Like, how does that entirely work? And what are you seeing in that space?
You mean specifically for Christie's or in general?
I think in general, even with the family office, right? They
Okay.
might,
No, for me,
if a family office.
let's say this way, like family office, they want to transact in fiat. Let's say it this way. So they don't really want to deal anything outside their normal concept they are used to, because they have procedures in place. I mean, you most likely know that as well from traditional asset management. It's harder to convince them to buy some tokens. They want to buy, for example, like I think something like a Bitcoin, which is listed like in Europe, for example, through an ISIN or directly on a stock market somewhere. They want to have the Bitcoin proper custody, but they not want to hold them themselves, because the family office has a manager. Why would he have access to the public key? What we encounter is as well the same like in the NFT space. And for us, it's more like, okay, let's say like in Europe, there are a lot of companies who have art collections which want to expand them, and they are looking into the NFT space. And the largest problem, particular they have, is like, imagine someone, like for them, it's, they buy like a lot of art, but it's not like they would change the whole procedure because now they want to buy something specifically in the NFT space. And this is what I'm seeing, like literally an inverse, like people who have crypto money and wanting to buy blue chip art. I think Christie's, for the auctions which are up now with NFTs, is accepting so cryptocurrencies. But in the end, the process is completely the same as you would transact fiat to them, and yes, there's one issue which you maybe would like to address, is like when this people sold his artwork and Metacoin bought it. So for me, it was like, in one way I was appreciated it, but in another way I would have appreciated it if the buyer would have been someone from the traditional artwork, let's say like a Rockefeller Art Foundation or something like this, because that would have given, that's my assumption, that would have given how to say that, more value, even if the price would have been as lower than it was sold. Because in one way, I mean, maybe people hate me if I say this, but maybe most likely I'm not caring too much about it. It was a little bit of a show off, like who can bid more, and a bidding war, which is good in a way for a market, but it also took prices
certainly
out.
Good for people.
Yeah,
certainly good for people. No, 100%, because actually you're right. I think that had somebody from a blue chip space or somebody non-crypto native had bought it, it would create a little bit more validation in the space. But then this is also a true crossover for decentralized finance, which I absolutely love.
And I think we all here know, like people are saying always auctions at Christie's are so great. I mean, Christie's is auctioning off Rolexes. Christie's is auctioning off a lot of things. To be honest, I mean, it is people really would hate me if I say this. But for me, that this space was popping very excessively in a short time, which can sometimes be a little bit of dangerous as well. But in one way, we have seen it was a catalyst which brought attention, which is also good. So I don't personally know if it's always good to be critical, but I think we have to consider this. I mean, Christie's does auctions for Chinese art, which no one knows about it. It's just for a certain secluded circle of people. And yes, I mean, NFTs is a big topic, so it's covered by media. But let's say it this way: if we have the 16th auction of 5 punks and some apes at Christie's, I think media is also getting tired about it, writing about it,
Probably, yeah. At the end of the day, it's always for me.
And what Lawrence is doing, I find personally for interesting in a way, because particularly as Juergen says, he wants to bring the digital world, so the physical world into the digital space, basically tokenizing the world. This is more or less how I see it, or fractionalizing it. And that's definitely something which is the future. And for me, it's the same thing, like non-fungibles or fungibles. It's just a way how I can transfer value in a digital way. And I think the space we are in is just waking up, to be honest.
That's amazing.
Sorry, I'm talking
Yeah, I would agree. I would totally agree with that. I mean, I think it is. That's part of what makes it so fun right now, is that, you know, on one hand, this always happens when a new technology comes around. People try to compare it to what was. Well, how is this analogous to what was? But what's so exciting about this space is the reality is we have no idea. You know, I remember thinking about the internet, because my first e-commerce business was in like '93, and it was so tedious and challenging and difficult, and there were so many things involved. We had to build all these pieces, and you know, and I remember thinking when people were talking about the internet and they were saying this is going to revolutionize everything. But like, it's so impossible you can't in that day and age conceive of a Facebook or anything that's happening on the internet. In fact, this conversation, it would be inconceivable. Wait, you're gonna have 3 people from around the planet have a conversation, right?
Yes.
That's where we are with NFTs and art. And so the way we're looking at it, and Juergen, it sounds, you know, similar. It's like, it's more like what is possible. Every day I have conversations with people that boggle my mind, you know, about what's possible. I just had a conversation today with somebody who can take the fractions and wrap that in an NFT.
Yeah, sure.
It's like,
I think I'm completely on your side. It's like when we talk about NFTs per se, imagine it. Everyone knows the computer game Pong from Atari. This is where we are in the NFT stage. And then imagine someone playing Pong or inventing Pong. You would have shown him like a World of Warcraft or a Second Life or something like this, or a metaverse. They would like completely say, no, that's not possible. And I think it's very similar here in the space. And I know like most likely, Lawrence, you lived through this very much more active than me. Like for me, it was like, you know, like I was like, the early days when I was dreaming about having a laptop and the computer. And then for me, internet was like, oh my God, I can read the newspaper from Australia, which is completely ridiculous if you sit in Europe, but I don't know why, but that were things which were interesting. And yeah, as you said as well, like it's for me, the whole, so I put NFTs under a container, which is called, you know, I think first is like about tokenization. Tokenization for me is the evolution of digitalization. So we lived in the age of this digitalization, and the normal evolution of that would be tokenization as a next step, which we are literally in. I mean, the world gets tokenized, which means it gets valued, it gets made tradable, which can be very critical. But out of this, we call it now NFTs, and I don't like the word as a complete vertical. I call it more like a creator economy, creative economy. And I think that's where literally we are going at the moment. And if you see it, like, I mean, what opportunities are made there? I mean, it's really crazy at the moment, and we know that. But it changes the landscape as well. And for me, this whole concept of NFTs, creator economy, creative economy, is also to then, like in a more holistic perspective, this idea of work 4.0, you know. And I mean, that's like a more like a philosophical approach, but there are so many components which are finally coming together, which we had in mind, but didn't know how they're possible to solve, literally.
right.
I literally see this as kind of like a Pandora's box, but I do actually have a technical question, because like it's got something to do with governance, you know, especially once you start fractionalizing something, like say a Picasso. How does that happen? Like, you know, with the custody, because everybody's like managing their own wallets. If let's talk about like an entire Picasso piece fractionalized in an NFT, and then the governance side of that, and what happens to custody? What happens if, you know, the wallet just becomes, you know, lost or destroyed, right? And then how does that affect governance? How does that affect calculation of AUM? Like, can you guys give me some clarity on that?
I mean, I can tell you, briefly. I think all of these things are in the process of being solved. But in terms of custody, you still have the same thing. Like for us, we keep the piece under lock and key security, the original, and it's temperature controlled. It's so all originals exist in a place. We additionally have a governance token. So over time, as we become a complete DAO, the community will determine what pieces we buy, where we go, how we use things. But basically, a piece will remain in custody, and the only caveat that we do, and it's just because we love this idea, is that if somebody does take the time to acquire, let's say, all 100 fragments of the Picasso, we will then deliver that piece to them if they want. So this is just, I just love this idea. In the meantime, if somebody did, let's say, lose a piece, then we would have to determine that, because that's going to happen, right? People are going to lose their private key, stuff's going to happen. So I'm sure there are going to be caveats to that, but then the governance token, people can vote and say, hey, we had 100 pieces of this Picasso, 2 people lost theirs, so now we have 98. You decide, do we still deliver the piece to the person who acquired it? I think that's where governance becomes really fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm excited by
I
that.
don't know exactly how EcoFi is doing it, but I think like you can reference to how security tokens are managed, and most of the security tokens are not really like, how to say that, like in blockchain is saying not your key, not your token, so similar like this. In security tokens, what I know, for example, under the certain regulations, you even need to have you need to even be able to lock the parts of the security the person would have remotely, because so the law would need to have enforcement rights over it. I don't know how it is with how Lawrence is doing this, but I know some other persons which fractionalize art, where literally if you lose it, you literally need to claim you lose it. They would mark that token which you own or that fraction as non-transferable, which means it cannot transfer it anymore, and you get it literally reissued.
Sorry, did you say it gets reissued?
Yeah, because like in a way, like security tokens are anyway in most cases KYC and AML.
Yeah.
So they would know which address is owning them, and the same thing would be with the fractions of the art piece. if they're using a security token like of model, which in some jurisdictions they literally have to. And then it would be like meaning, okay, let's say this is my ETH address. Whatever accident I'm losing this, and the issuer of the fractions of the art piece would blacklist my address, which owns that specific share, and would reissue that specific share on another chain, literally, so on another address for me. And I could continue, because it's the same issue, like, let's say this way, if there's a couple, the person gets divorced, how do you split the digital assets, or how do you split the fractions of the art? So there needs to be ways where legal enforcement is. As a blockchain person, whatever you call it, you would argue, yeah, but that's not immutable, because someone can interfere.
Or double spend, yeah.
Let's say it this way: we have to be honest here. This full idea of immutability is anyway not there. So because it's a little bit of
here and there, depending on the smart contract, I guess. But there's ways to circumvent in order for things to not get missed.
Yeah, immutability means like what is happening if Lawrence company is deciding to. If the piece gets robbed, imagine it like this: the physical piece gets robbed. What does it mean for me then still owning a digital share of the ownership? Because the underlying.
We would assume that Lawrence's piece would be insured, right? And so that would be the idea behind it.
But this is what I mean. Is like, but for me, I don't care about the money. I can't care about the intrinsic value. You know, I could always argue, but there's still things, as Lawrence is saying as well. There's still things which we have not figured out. I think with something like a governance model, you could, you know, like let's say this, as he was saying, 99 people, let's say 100 people have a fraction. 99 people, one person says, "Hey, I lost my keys." Everyone knows that person because some way of KYC needs to be done, I'm assuming, for Lawrence as well. Then the decision is made, hey, key whatever lost his access, we will blacklist that, and the governance need to decide on it, which is like still a form of immutability where basically the ownership itself or the governance itself decides what's happened. You know? And in the worst case, they all decide we burn that contract and make a complete new contract and reissue it. Then you still have immutability, but it makes just more work.
Right.
Yeah. So I think there are always ways to solve a lot of problems. Let's say it this way.
What would you guys say to like kind of like naysayers or like the ones that are really skeptical about the market? And I ask this because I've been, you know, for example, there is an LP in New York that basically, you know, does version of this, but in the real world where they're actually issuing funds or shares of a fund, right? And they basically called like NFTs as kind of like, you know, too risky because, you know, the prices are wild and they're swinging left, right, and center. And when I read that, I was just like, well, that's kind of like, things are just moving faster right now, but it doesn't mean to say that that wasn't happening before. Like, you know, if we come to think about it, wasn't Picasso like broke? Or no, maybe not Picasso, Van Gogh definitely was, and like a whole bunch of these masterwork artists, right? And so like, what do we have to say to them?
To the traditional fund manager that he's critical, or?
It's, well, he's, I guess, a fund manager now in the, you know, alternative
space.
Like,
you know, like how to explain it. If someone complains about volatility and mispricing, look at certain stocks. They are also priced on I don't know what value. You know, if you, I mean, it's true. It's NFTs are like a special asset class, but also to buying traditional art is a special asset class. So, I mean, I'm agreeing with it that someone would agree the asset class is not so liquid because people, you know, like they're like CryptoPunks. People are saying, oh, I have $7 million worth of CryptoPunks. Then I'm saying, yeah, you have $7 million worth of floor value CryptoPunks.
Right.
But imagine if everyone is now deciding to sell his floor CryptoPunks, it's not worth 7 million. It's you know, like people don't understand sometimes the value, what paper money means as a value and realized gains. They don't have this concept. So for a traditional person, if he's saying, you know, as we all know, it's contemporary art is slow moving normally, you know, like it takes 4 years and then let's say some new contemporary artist pops up, his work is sold for 100K, and maybe 4 years later it's sold for like 200, 400, 500, $1 million, which is a 10x in 4 years. The same thing happens in the NFT space in 4 months. We are completely aware about that. But also too, as quick as they are popping up, they could go away. And to be honest, I mean, if you talk about NFT artists, there is a handful which consumes 90% of the money. And there's an extremely long tail, and people will hate me now as well. It's very America-centric, a lot of the NFT artists, because, you know, if you look, like the whole ecosystem is built around certain circles, and it does not allow, so it does not give recognition to, so we are in a market which is developing, and literally it's getting priced for maybe like 6 to 12 months maximum, which means there's a lot of crazy things happening, you know, like
exactly.
which is good and which is bad, but I'm like, I think the older you get, the more relaxed you are about this. So like, yes, I didn't buy punks, and I don't care about that. I'm not buy punks, but I'm dealing with punks. It's like, for me, like, I was not seeing the value back then. I'm still not seeing it, but I'm understanding the financial mechanics behind it and the value why they have it. And punks critics would hate me for this, but you know, like something like a Damien Hirst. If you look at it, he was selling his 10,000 pieces a pop for $2,000 US. Did you ever look about how much a normal Damien Hirst physical gets sold? Like if it's a limited print run, it's around 5,000 to 15,000, can even go to 30,000. But it's a limited edition of, I don't know, like 100 or 200. So for me, like having something which is a limited edition of 10,000 sold at 2,000, and Damien Hirst himself in the gallery priced it most likely based on, you know, their proper appraisals, what's the average value, what he's doing of work. And then he was saying, okay, I'm thinking this body of work I produced here has this kind of value. And we all know Damien Hirst is very smart in a way of when it comes to making money. And I'm pretty sure he was also very surprised that one of these things is selling for 60,000 US dollars. But also too, if you consider about how many of that 10,000 fractions have been sold at that price, it's very low, you know what I mean? So for me, I think, and imagine it like, imagine in the traditional world, in 3 weeks, his work would have 30x the price. There's no rationality to it. So you have some sort of game mechanics in this NFT space, which is used for price finding, to be honest, you know?
That's
for
true.
For me, we will see it like Damien Hirst, for example, is a good example because he has a substantial body of work which is traditionally priced. Now he got priced in a new form of media that got up. I think now it's around 30,000 US dollar on average a piece of that thing. And we will see how, for example, I'm pretty sure his work will show up in traditional auctions as well, where more traditional people are coming in. Then we will really see what the price is. That's for me like an indication.
Agreed.
Things like when, you know, like I have also to know analytics on the punks, how much they were sold on auction, how much the apes were sold on auction, but it's always about the buyers, you know. If we here make an auction on Christie's and just everyone sells his own artworks to each other, I mean, yeah, we generated a nice buzz, but that's it. And I think what I find interesting is like, in a way, like the traditional artwork goes digital, the digital world wants to go very traditional, you know. But if anyone it's a little bit pathetic in another way. So we need to use in the digital space some traditional organization like Sotheby's or Christie's to confirm the value which we generated in this digital space versus, hey, we all hate this old world so much.
All right, guys. Well, how about this? Just quickly, just to cap it off, like maybe quickly tell me where you see NFT trends will be. Like, do you find this kind of like short term, long term, or like, are you in here for the long haul? Yeah, Lawrence, let's start with you.
I mean, from our perspective, we've been building for a year and a half, and my dream is to continue to build to see where this thing goes. So I'm going until I will have an NFT frame as I'm being buried. That's how I see it at this point. I just want to see, you know, where this adventure goes. I think it's incredible. I think this is the beginning. Again, for me, crypto itself is reminiscent of the internet. I was there for that. I didn't understand it. For crypto, I don't understand it, but I know how important it is, and I'm here for the, you know, our team is here. All of us are builders, and we just want to continue the adventure. So I'm definitely in for the long haul.
That's great. Juergen?
For me, it's like, I have to say, like, I entered internet when I was like, I think the first time 12 years. No, like literally like before Google even, which is ridiculous actually. And I just literally saw how long I'm on Twitter, and it was like, oh my God, like soon it's half of my life. So for me, like I always said, I'm always wasn't on the edge of things, let's say it this way. And for me, it's just now like NFTs is where I personally get the most response, because before in the crypto space, it was about deep tech guys and traders. It was not about creative people also doing technology. And for me, this is, I'm in technology, and I have I like creativity. So that's for me my playground, to be honest. And that's like NFTs. That at the moment it's about art, but to be honest, NFTs will be, your passport will be some form of NFT, tickets will be some form of NFT, your ownership of a car can be represented in the form of NFTs. If they are called NFTs, we know it, but values represented in a non-fungible way will exist and will come. And it's like, who had thought that people stream all their music on Spotify or whatever? Who have thought they watch all their movies on Netflix? We don't know what happens here. Maybe in the future, all your let's say this way, your software licenses are even NFTs. This is how I
definitely
see it.
I'm really seeing use cases like explode in this space, whether or not it's warranty, provenance, provenance, like authenticating art, stolen art and stuff like that. I always see it in such a way that there's a lot of work put into the authentication piece, and in fact that work can be placed into an NFT, which is a cool thing. Marriage certificates can go on an NFT. Imagine having like 1 year expiry. It'd be hilarious, and it'll spontaneously combust. Perhaps that marriage is like worth more. Who knows, right? So there's these things that I'm seeing now. I've been called today that I've been participating in a bleeding edge, and to be careful. But I love the space, and I can see how much both of you love it as well. And so happy to be, to continue this conversation somehow. Let's take it offline. I'm on LinkedIn, for example, and I just want to keep chatting about NFTs and how I really think that people need to adopt this. And the only way for them to adopt this is to basically, do a public service announcement. It's the same way as Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Any last words, guys?
No, pleasure to be here and meet everybody, and explore and jump into the space.
I think people don't underestimate how many people are there on the second non-so visible layer, and it's a ton of people, because we always talk about this 10-20 people on the top, but literally it's about that layer which is building the whole thing. Those are just like I guess, well, the NFT artists, when they come in, and then it's like, no guys, like, sorry, like, I'm not buying your artwork for $5,000. You don't have any records. And all those other guys, yes, you need to start, you need to give something. And if you get recognized like a hackathon or something like this artist which is so long in this space, and then people wonder why they're selling so much for so high. Yeah, because they were there when no one was here. You know what I mean? So this is one point, and then the newbies are coming in like, hey, if this guy's selling for 100,000, I had this literally once, like, ask a guy, he has a nice work, and then he's like, yeah, but that guy sells for 100,000, so I'm selling mine for 10,000. I was like, no, I mean, you can price it for whatever you want it, but if you really seriously want to, you need to, this is a dynamic market, the NFT art space. You need an artist and you need a collector, but if you, as an artist, overprice immediately, no collector is supporting you as well.
100%. Yeah. I have so many other questions. It's too bad we only have 35 minutes or half an hour. Like, I wanted to ask about royalties and how you guys are seeing with that and being tracked, because I'm hearing some noise that, it's been difficult. And so for me, royalties was always a key thing with respect to NFTs, and I'm trying to figure out what that issue was. And also, I actually wanted to ask, if I can fit it, is more like, what do you guys use to do your NFTs? Are you sticking to ERC 721 Ethereum, or are you using any other of these lower cost side chains?
We built our own minting contracts, so but it is on Ethereum, and then we're going to be working with Luxo, which is a phenomenal blockchain as well. So I mean, we're exploring. That's where it's at, and it's like, obviously there's going to be a pressure to keep fees down. Interested to see where Ethereum goes with that, but I mean, there's so many amazing things happening. The only thing I can say currently about Ethereum and why we chose it is just because of the value. So just the inherent value of the work you have to do to acquire. So for us, that was important.
Interesting. Juergen, are you agnostic, or are you like sticking to ETH as well?
I have to say, I'm an ETH fanboy, so most my purchases and transactions are on ETH. I also do like Tezos, and definitely Luxo is a hidden champion for me because they address it in a very easy way to purchase stuff, and usability and UX, which they're highly focused on. So I'm like completely on Lauren's side here as well. We will see something from their end, hopefully pretty soon, which is great.
Super
That's pretty
excited.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks everybody.
So much. It's a wrap. Well, have a great day, good evening to everybody, and yeah, we'll hopefully catch each other in some kind of like conference.